Welcome to Sports Love Media on YouTube. It's you guys, Sports Love, broadcasting live today, September 3rd, 2025, with the college football top 25, my perspective for week 2 games, which will be September 3rd through 7th of 2025. In this live stream, we will go over the AP poll top 25 for week 2 for the 2025 college football season. We will then go over the top 25 matchups. After going over the matchups, we will look at what the pros say the point spread or margin of victory is. We will also look at the over-under, which is a total combined score they believe both teams will score in total for the game in question. If I agree with the pros or disagree with them, I will do the best I can to explain my reasoning. After this, I will go to a segment called Game of Intrigue. This game of intrigue will feature a game where both teams are not in the top 25. I will do what I can to share how the schools relate to each other. This can be sports related or not. And then, of course, I'll go over the same process in looking at what pros say regarding a margin of victory and the over-under. If I agree or disagree with the pros, I will do the best I can to explain my reasoning. After this, I will mention who else will be playing this week in college football without the in-depth analysis. Can y'all hear me out there in YouTube land? Alrighty, let's get started with this. We are going to start off with who is in the Associated Press Top 25 poll this week. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Penn State. Number 3, LSU. Number 4, Georgia. Number 5, Miami. Number 6, Oregon. Number 7, Texas. Number 8, Clemson. Number 9, Notre Dame. Number 10, South Carolina. Number 11, Illinois. Number 12, Arizona State. Number 13, Florida. Number 14, Florida State. Number 15, Michigan. Number 16, Iowa State. Number 17, SMU. Number 18, Oklahoma. Number 19, Texas A&M. Number 20, Ole Miss. Number 21, Alabama. Number 22, Tennessee. Number 23, Indiana. Number 24, Texas Tech. And number 25 is Utah. All right, here are the top 25 matchups for week 2. There are some games that take place on Friday, September 5th, but for all purposes of what we're talking about today, all top 25 matchups will take place Saturday, September 6th. So in the matchups, you have number 2, Penn State versus Florida International. You have number 7, Texas versus San Jose State. Number 16, Iowa State versus Iowa. Number 17, SMU versus Baylor. Number 23, Indiana versus Kennesaw State. Number 24, Texas Tech versus Kent State. Number 19, Texas A&M versus Utah State. You have number 1, Ohio State versus Grambling. Number 4, Georgia versus Austin Peay. Number 8, Clemson versus Troy. Number 20, Ole Miss versus Kentucky. Number 22, Tennessee versus East Tennessee State. Number 13, Florida versus South Florida. Number 25, Utah versus California Polytechnic, or Cal Poly for short. Number 5, Miami and Florida versus Bethune-Cookman. Number 10, South Carolina versus South Carolina State. Number 3, LSU versus Louisiana Tech. Number 12, Arizona State versus Mississippi State. Number 15, Michigan versus number 18, Oklahoma. And number 21, Alabama versus UL of Monroe. I will go over who the game of intrigue is after we've had a chance to go over the analysis for this top 25. So, now that we have looked at who is in the AP poll top 25 and who their matchups are, let's dig deeper for those top 25 matchups. The first matchup we're going to look at this week is number 2, Penn State versus Florida International. In this matchup, Penn State is favored to win this game by 42.5 or 43 points by the pros. The over-under is 54.5 or 55. Last week, Penn State showed great offense both in passing and on the rush until the midway part of the fourth quarter. Penn State did defeat Nevada soundly. Florida International did have a decent game versus Bethune by showing how to run the ball. The pass game looked weak. The question is, will Florida International defeat Penn State? And I will answer with slightly possible, but very much not likely. Penn State is a powerhouse school within the Big Ten Conference. Historically, it's been very tough for teams to defeat Penn State regardless of who the conference is and who it is playing them. On paper, Penn State football will eat Florida International for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Florida International could be a decent team this year, especially within Conference USA. The win will not happen for Florida International. I'm going to be honest and say this game could be a massive blowout in favor of Penn State. A score of 52-0 seems possible for Penn State to win and pull off. Despite this, I will agree with the pros on this one, with Penn State winning by 43 points. I will go under the 55. The next game we will look at this week is Texas versus San Jose State. For both Texas and San Jose State, they both did well on defense last week, but it wasn't enough since Texas lost to Ohio State and San Jose State lost to Central Michigan. Texas is a strong team within the Southeastern Conference. San Jose State is what most would consider a weak or in a weak conference. San Jose State, with the exception of last week, is not known for playing defense, if at all. They win some games and lose more than they win with sloppy passing and not being able to do good running the ball. The sloppy state of offense will be nightmare for San Jose State. If defense not good, it will be even worse. This in a whole will not bode well for San Jose State. Texas is excellent on defense and above average on offense. Red zone protection, protecting line, and perhaps defensively. Since they are so good with those things, passing does need work, but they make up for it in the run game. To put simply, stats don't lie, and Texas football is far more superior than San Jose State. For these reasons, I will agree with the pros completely, favoring Texas to win this game by 36.5 or 37 points. The over-under is 52.5 or 53, and I will go over the 53. Hello to you, let's see, Double X Warlord. Thank you for joining me today on this broadcast today. I do greatly appreciate you. All right, so let's move on to the next game. Next game we're going to look at is number 11, Illinois versus Duke. The pros favor Illinois to defeat Duke by 2.5 or 3 points. Illinois did play stellar on offense last week and did very well on defense. In this game, Illinois seems to have very good defense. Duke has okay offense, but I see potential issues on the long pass plays and with hanging on to the ball when pass is made. This puts the offense as average, but still needs work. Defense seems above average. Both teams are notably known for having good defenses. This defense may be a struggle for both teams, but could also make for a close. There we go. I'm sorry if I ended up losing y'all for just a second, so let's go back over this again. The next game we're going to look at right now is number 11, Illinois versus Duke. The pros favor Illinois to defeat Duke by 2.5 or 3 points. Illinois did play stellar on offense last week and did very well on defense. In this game, Illinois seems to have a very good defense. Duke has an okay offense, but I see potential issues on the long pass plays and with hanging onto the ball when pass is made. This puts the offense at average, but still needs work. Defense seems a little bit above average. Both teams are notably known for having good defenses. This defense may be a struggle for both teams, but could also make for a close, exciting game. For these reasons, I will agree with the pros on this game. Illinois defeats Duke by 3 points. The over-under is 49.5 or 50. I will go over the 50. Anyway, let's see, hang on. I'm sorry, give me just a moment. All right, yeah, the next game we're going to look at today is Florida State versus East Texas A&M. East Texas A&M did not have a good week last week, both on offense and defense. Offense was below average, and defense was so bad it sent the Daleks into the space-time continuum, and they started war with the Cybermen. The defense allowed too many points to be scored, making that part terrible. The picture does not get better this week for East Texas A&M. Florida State is coming off huge win over number 8 of Alabama at that time as an unranked team in the top 25. Florida State has struggled over the last couple of seasons. It looks like early on, due to these struggles, they are trying to redeem themselves and are out for blood. On paper, Florida State looks to unleash a can of whoop ass on East Texas A&M. No information is available on the pros and their thoughts on the over-under, as well as the margin of victory. Since the information is not available, I will make prediction on final score. Florida State 52, East Texas A&M 3 is my prediction. It could very well be more, but I will stick to 52-3 as final score, favoring Florida State. Let's see. Can y'all hear me out there in YouTube land? All right, there we go. All right, the next game we're going to look at is number 16, Iowa State versus Iowa. In this game, the pros favor Iowa State to defeat Iowa by 3.5 or 4 points. The over-under is 41.5 or 42. Iowa State, in their last 2 games, had average offense and defense in their game versus Kansas State. In their game versus South Dakota, they had stellar offense and defense. Iowa State is known for usually playing was average on offense and slightly above average on defense. The same can be said this week for Iowa State. Iowa last week had above average week on offense, but that is with reservations due to expectation of better sense of urgency. This urgency existed for most of the game, but not late. Iowa had above average defense, and it showed by how few points they allowed. Both teams have decent defenses, but since Iowa is known for tiring out in the fourth quarter, it will come down to bite them in the ass. I agree with the pros on having Iowa State to win, but I disagree with the margin of victory. My prediction is Iowa State defeats Iowa by 2. I will go under the 42. I do not believe there will be a lot of points scored between the two of them. Next game we're going to look at this week is number 17, SMU versus Baylor. Baylor had a hard time keeping up with Auburn last week. Offense for Baylor overall is weak, yet they made some plays and scored some, but in doing so looked very sloppy. The sloppy will become the nightmare on Elm Street this week against SMU. SMU was above average last week in their game versus East Texas A&M. Defense was slightly above average in doing what they could to protect the line. SMU can and will score quickly. SMU, to me, looks better on paper than Baylor does. The pros favor SMU to win this game by 3 points over Baylor. The over-under is 65.5 or 66. The close for Baylor is special teams and field goal kicking. Other than that, Baylor will most likely lose the game. I will go under the 66. The next game we're going to look at today is number 23, Indiana versus Kennesaw State. Let's see. I also wish to apologize for any connectivity issues. I'm doing the best I can with it, so I will work with those and do better for the next stream. In this game with Indiana and Kennesaw State, Indiana is favored to defeat Kennesaw State by 35.5 or 36 points. The over-under is 51.5 or 53. In this game, there isn't really much to say. Indiana will be like piranhas in water over Kennesaw State. The battle of Big Ten member versus Conference USA will be bloodbath for Kennesaw State. Even though they held it together and barely lost to Wake Forest, Indiana is not weak like Wake Forest is. Indiana is very strong on offense and defensive side of things. The offense will hold their ground very well. Kennesaw State will probably do well with field goal kicking. Everything else on Kennesaw State sucks. They are penalized a lot for things due to lack of discipline, and on offense they can't drive the ball well. Defense barely squeaks by when success comes, even in small doses. Indiana is patient but will not wait around. They will score often and quickly due to the lack of discipline from Kennesaw State. For these reasons, I agree completely on how the pros view this game. Indiana will win this game by 36. I will go over the 53. Hello, Aurora. How are you doing today? Glad to have you here today on the Texas Tech versus Kent State. In this game, the pros favor Texas Tech to defeat Kent State by 48.5 or 49 points. Yes, you read that right. That is not a misprint. The over-under is 58.5 or 59. Kent State on offense and defense both barely squeaked by. They did this by playing subpar. Usually that style of play leads to disaster, but somehow it didn't last week for Kent State. I'm afraid that style will not change this week at all for Kent State, and this game will be the epitome of bad due to how chaotic Texas Tech plays. Looking at how Texas Tech did last week is like watching Speedy Gonzalez or the Roadrunner in Looney Tunes. Offense scores quick, and they run up-tempo style of play. Time is not wasted. Defense is above average, and they know how to protect the line, the perimeter, and the red zone. This game could be an epic fail for Kent State. Kent State will be lucky if they do manage to score points. For these reasons, I'm going to agree with the pros on this game. Texas Tech defeats Kent State by 49 points. I will go under the 59. This game could also end up as a goose egg for Kent State. Only time will tell on that one. Next game we're going to look at today is number 19, Texas A&M versus Utah State. In this game, Texas A&M is favored to defeat Utah State by 31.5 or 32 points. The over-under is 54.5 or 55. Utah State has above-average offense and average defense, which works for them within the weaker Mountain West Conference. The Utah State football team is playing an SEC opponent with Texas A&M. Historically in football, the SEC dominates teams they play in the Mountain West Conference in football. Texas A&M had above average offense and average defense in their game last week versus the University of Texas in San Antonio, or UTSA. Average in SEC conference can dominate very easily one who is average in the Mountain West Conference. The two conferences are not the same, not even close. On paper, Texas A&M could win this game over Utah State blindfolded and with one arm behind their back while hopping on one foot. Texas A&M is very good on big run plays and throwing the deep ball. They can also do this lightning fast pace. Utah State will not be able to keep up with Texas A&M. For these reasons, I agree with the pros on this one. Texas A&M will defeat Utah State by 32 points. I will go over the 55. All right, next game we're going to look at today will be number 1, Ohio State versus Grambling. Grambling is in the SWAC conference, which to many is known as a weak conference. Ohio State won close match over number 1 Texas last week. Ohio State is powerhouse with Big Ten Conference. Grambling usually sucks overall in football as a team, and it will start to show in this game. Ohio State is good on offense and defense and plays both sides of the ball very well. Ohio State normally, for most part, many would consider overrated. I will not say that just yet because of their tough fight to successfully defeat, at the time, the best team in the country, the number 1 team in the country last week, which was Texas. Now they're not. This game is most likely going to be a severe blowout in favor of Ohio State. No information is available on the margin of victory and for the over-under on this game, so I will make my own prediction. Final score prediction, Ohio State 58, Grambling 0. Yes, you heard that right. I picked Grambling will have goose egg with 0 for their final score. Next game we're going to look at this week is number 4, Georgia versus Austin Peay. Austin Peay looks to do well within the FCS AA Division I football program. This issue is Georgia is an SEC conference powerhouse in FBS Division I. Good offense in FCS does not translate well when playing teams like Georgia. Defense is flat for Austin Peay. Georgia has stellar offense and defense, which will continue in this game. No information again is available. Game between Georgia and Austin Peay is Georgia 55, Austin Peay 6. Austin Peay will manage to get a score in, and it will probably be very late in the game. Either that or it'll be a couple of field goals scattered throughout the whole game. They won't score much, but they will score something. Hopefully, anyway. All right, so the next game we're going to look at this week will be number 6, Oregon versus Oklahoma State. In this game, the pros favor Oregon to defeat Oklahoma State by 28.5 or 29 points. The over-under is 58.5 or 59. Oklahoma State may do good this year within the Big 12 Conference. The problem is they start off well, then choke in the end of their season. That season trend looks to be that way again this week. Oklahoma State has bad or terrible defense usually, and that will likely come back and bite them. This week, last week, their offense and defense for Oklahoma State was average to slightly above average. This trend will not continue this week. Oregon has okay defense and offense that can score points at will. Not much else to say. Oregon is the better of the two teams. I do believe Oklahoma State will score more points than the pros like to think they will score. For these reasons, I will agree with the pros, the fact that Oregon defeats Oklahoma State, but I disagree on the margin of victory. My prediction for this game, Oregon wins by 15 points over Oklahoma State. I will go over the 59 for this game. All right. Next game we're going to look at this week will be number 8, Clemson versus Troy. In this game, the pros favor Clemson to defeat Troy by 33.5 or 34 points. The over-under is 51.5 or 52. Troy is slightly above average on offense and near average on defense. Troy does play decent defense most of the time. They are also an up-and-coming team within the Sun Belt Conference. Troy is very good for most part in red zone protection, but I don't think it will be enough against Clemson. Clemson lost to LSU last week and is out for revenge this week. They have to redeem themselves somehow. If both teams play as expected, this game may be closer than many expect it to be. With these thoughts, I will agree with the pros that Clemson wins this game, but I disagree on the margin of victory. My prediction, Clemson defeats Troy by 15 points. I will go under the 52. Next game we're going to look at this week is number 22, Tennessee versus East Tennessee State. East Tennessee State is good right now, but basically within their conference. Tennessee is tough to beat no matter who plays them. Both look good on offense and defense. On paper, Tennessee is much stronger than East Tennessee State. Really not much else to say on this game, except that Tennessee will beat East Tennessee State badly. No information is available on the over-under score or the margin of victory, so I'll make my own prediction. Final score in this game, Tennessee 44, East Tennessee State 17. All right, the next game we're going to look at today is number 20, Ole Miss versus Kentucky. In this game, the pros favor Ole Miss to defeat Kentucky by 10.5 or 11 points. The over-under is 50.5 or 51. Kentucky last week won the game, but struggled on both offense and defense. This struggle can and will cause teams problems if it continues. I see it as problem versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss usually is unpredictable in the way they play offense, and it leads to scoring quickly and for high-scoring games. The defense was and will continue to be hard to stop. Ole Miss has strong defense and is very good at getting ball down the field and causing sacks on defense. I see this continuing this week for Ole Miss. I agree with the pros on having Ole Miss to win this game, but I disagree on the margin of victory. I actually think it'll be a bigger margin than what the pros say. My prediction is Ole Miss will defeat Kentucky by 17 points. Let's see. I will go over the 51. The next game we're going to look at this week is number 13, Florida versus South Florida. The pros in this game favor Florida to defeat South Florida by 17.5 or 18 points. The over-under is 56.5 or 57. South Florida will have second-ranked top 25 opponent to play in a row this week. South Florida did a great job in stopping Boise State on defense. Offense looked good, but needs to work on execution of plays better late in the game. Florida did exceptional on defense and very good on offense last week. Florida is known for having hard defense to play through, at least historically. Offense needs to improve just a bit on the short pass plays. Other than minor tweaks, Florida is tough to beat on defense. The saving grace for South Florida is special teams kicking off or punting deep, making it a challenge to get out of the hole we call inside the 5-yard line. Florida will adapt and win this game. For these reasons, I will agree with the pros on this game. Florida defeats South Florida by 18 points. I will go over the 57. Next game we're going to look at this week is number 25, Utah versus California Polytechnic, or Cal Poly for short. Cal Poly last week had an above-average week in offense and average on defense. Cal Poly is in weaker conference compared to Utah. Utah had above-average performance last week in offense and also on defense. Cal Poly is good on the long punts, special teams, and field goals. Utah is good everywhere else. Utah can score quickly, or they can bleed a lot of clock, and they adapt very quickly. Utah looks to be too hot for Cal Poly to follow. Not much else to say on this game. Utah will win this game big. No information is available on the over-under or the margin of victory for this game by the pros. So for this circumstance, I will make my own prediction. Final score prediction on the game Utah versus Cal Poly. Utah 42, Cal Poly 7. Next game we're going to look at today will be number 5, Miami in Florida versus Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman last week had a downright terrible game overall. The defense was terrible due to allowing high amount of points to be scored, and offense was terrible due to barely squeaking out any points at all. This game will likely be no different for Bethune-Cookman. Miami right now is hot due to stellar plays on both sides of the ball. It was stellar even for Miami standards. Miami has great RPO and is dangerous in a good way for scoring due to this. The RPO they have is what I like to call organized chaos. For these reasons, Miami will do damage and will win big against Bethune-Cookman. No information is available on this game on the over-under or the margin of victory that the pros usually predict. So my final score prediction for this will be Miami 49, Bethune-Cookman 7. All right, next game we're going to look at today will be number 10, South Carolina versus South Carolina State. South Carolina State, in the game they played last week, resulted in a struggle win. Offense and defense, both for South Carolina State, was flat, and even though the win came in struggle fashion, it did not impress me. Teams that play like this will lose bad to Southeastern Conference teams, like South Carolina or any other Southeastern Conference team for that matter. South Carolina protects the line well and red zone on defense. On offense, they don't long ball it much, but their success comes on short passing and rushing. South Carolina State is generally weak compared to South Carolina. No information is available again from the pros regarding the over-under or the margin of victory in this game, so I'll make my own prediction in this game. My prediction for the final score will be South Carolina 42, South Carolina State 10. Next game we're going to look at today is number 3, LSU versus Louisiana Tech. In this game, the pros from Las Vegas favor LSU to defeat Louisiana Tech by 37.5 or 38 points. The over-under is 51.5 or 52. Louisiana Tech last week did stellar on defense, allowing 0 points to be scored. Offense was good, but needs work on everything in passing and in the rush. LSU is coming off a big victory last week over Clemson. LSU normally has great defense. It's hard to score on a defense as good as LSU is in every area historically. Offense does need work, but they will do just fine in this game. LSU is a much better team than Louisiana Tech due to numerous factors, including size, conference, grit, and holding the line. This will be rough for Louisiana Tech. I will agree with the pros having LSU to win this game, but I disagree on the margin of victory. The margin of victory seems ridiculously too high. My prediction will be that LSU wins the game by 19 points over Louisiana Tech. I will go over the 52. Next game we're going to look at this week is number 12, Arizona State versus Mississippi State. In this game, the pros favor Arizona State to defeat Mississippi State by 6.5 or 7 points. The over-under is 59.5 or 60. In their game last week, Mississippi State had average game on both offense and defense against Southern Miss. Arizona State also had average week last week on offense and defense. Average versus average equals average. I believe both teams will have average week. Arizona State did surprise a lot of us last year and may do it again this year. Normally, I would not do this for a game like this, but I'm throwing monkey wrench in my prediction for this game. For the reasons I mentioned, I'm completely disagreeing with the pros on this game. My prediction, Mississippi State defeats Arizona State as an underdog by 3 points. I will go under the 60. Next game we will talk about today is number 15, Michigan versus number 18, Oklahoma. The pros in this game favor Oklahoma to defeat Michigan by 4.5 or 5 points. The over-under is 46.5 or 47. Michigan had average game on offense in their game versus New Mexico, but should have done better on scoring the points that they did. The final score should have been higher. Defense was average but needs to do better in red zone protection. Oklahoma did better last week on offense. They struggled early but got job done. On defense for Oklahoma, they did excellent job holding opponent to only 3 points. I believe both teams are better on defense than proper credit is given. Give credit where credit is due. Both teams on defense is pretty good. Offensively, both teams need to tweak things to get better at the pass protection. For these reasons, this game will be a close game, but I favor Oklahoma to come ahead with the win on this one, and I will agree with the pros on this one. Oklahoma defeats Michigan by 5 points. I will go over the 47. All right, the last game that we're going to look at today within the top 25 will be number 21, Alabama versus UL Monroe. In this game, Alabama is favored to win this game by 36.5 or 37 points over UL Monroe. The over-under is 50.5 or 51. UL Monroe, despite having odds stacked against them, in odds for this game, could be the red alert danger team. UL Monroe has beaten Alabama previously, and most do not remember that situation. UL Monroe did play stellar defense by not allowing opponent to score any points. Offense is above average due to good execution of plays, run, and passing. Alabama is going to avenge loss last week over Florida State. Offense and defense was flat last week. Alabama may be the better team on paper or otherwise, but UAL Monroe is to be watched. I do agree with the pros on Alabama winning the game, as the pros say, but I disagree on the margin of victory. My prediction is that Alabama will win the game by 21. I will go over the 51. Now that we have looked in depth at the top 25 matchups, it's now time for the segment that you all have been waiting for, called the Game of Intrigue. In this Game of Intrigue, both teams are not ranked within the top 25. I will look to see how both of the schools are related. This can be sports related or not. After finding things that can relate to each other, sports or not, we will do the normal looking at what the pros say on the margin of victory and the over-under, and go over that same process just like we did with the top 25. The game of intrigue for week 2 of the 2025 college football season is Kansas versus Missouri. Excuse me. Both universities have strong educational academic programs in journalism. Both schools have engineering programs as academic programs. Notable celebrities have graduated college at both of these schools. 167 miles separates the distance between the two college campuses. Both schools were members of the Big 12 Conference at some point within their history. Both universities have been around for at least 160 years. Now that we've looked at the things that are related to both schools that's not necessarily sports related, let's dig in on the sports side. In this game of intrigue between Missouri and Kansas, the pros favor Missouri to defeat Kansas by 6.5 or 7 points. The over-under is 51.5 or 52. For Kansas, the number 7 seems to be a common number in terms of the number of points scored by opponents in both of their games they've played so far. They defeated Fresno State 31-7, and they defeated Wagner 46-7. All right, so Kansas so far has shown stellar defense and above-average offense. They run the ball well and handle passing well. The only thing I see that needs tweaking at the moment is their punting. It looks like when they do that, it isn't smooth and could come back to bite them one day. Just not this game. Missouri so far has shown also to be good above average offense and stellar defense due to lack of points allowed. Missouri has good things going for it, but I see issues in scoring in the red zone. It seems when they get to the red zone, the struggle can be very awful, and it does begin. They can score when not in the red zone on the run or pass. I see those red zone issues staying the troublemaker in this game. I do think this game will be a close game, but in the end, one has to win. For these reasons, I will completely disagree with the pros on this game. My prediction, Kansas will win the game by 3 points over Missouri. I will go under the 52. Now, let's summarize again who is in the Associated Press Top 25 poll and the Top 25 matchups. So again, for those that's just joining me, thank you very much for joining me for this broadcast. In the AP poll Top 25 for this week, you have number 1, Ohio State, number 2, Penn State, number 3, LSU, number 4, Georgia, number 5, Miami, number 6, Oregon, number 7, Texas, number 8, Clemson, number 9, Notre Dame, number 10, South Carolina, number 11, Illinois, number 12, Arizona State, number 13, Florida, number 14, Florida State, number 15, Michigan, number 16, Iowa State, number 17, SMU, number 18, Oklahoma, number 19, Texas A&M, number 20, Ole Miss, number 21, Alabama, number 22, Tennessee, number 23, Indiana, number 24, Texas Tech, number 25, Utah. The top 25 matchups this week will be number 2, Penn State versus Florida International, number 7, Texas versus San Jose State, number 11, Illinois versus Duke, number 14, Florida State versus East Texas A&M, number 16, Iowa State versus Iowa, number 17, SMU versus Baylor, number 23, Indiana versus Kennesaw State, number 24, Texas Tech versus Kent State, number 19, Texas A&M versus Utah State, number 1, Ohio State versus Grambling, number 4, Georgia versus Austin Peay, number 8, Clemson versus Troy, number 20, Ole Miss versus Kentucky, number 22, Tennessee versus East Tennessee State, number 13, Florida versus South Florida, number 25, Utah versus California Polytechnic, or Cal Poly for short, number 5, Miami and Florida versus Bethune-Cookman, number 10, South Carolina versus South Carolina State, Number 3, LSU versus Louisiana Tech. Number 12, Arizona State versus Mississippi State. Number 15, Michigan versus Oklahoma, who's the number 18 team. Number 21 versus UL Monroe. And I believe the only ones that's not playing this week, and they're in a bye week, are number 9, Notre Dame, number 3, LSU, and number 2, Penn State. Actually, number 2, Penn State is playing, so it's number 3, LSU, and number 9, Notre Dame, I believe, are the ones that are not playing this week, so they're in a bye week. So there you have it. There's your AP poll top 25. There's your top 25 matchups. The game of intrigue was Kansas versus Missouri. Now, at this time, let's look and see who will be playing in college football this week in games that we do not go in-depth analysis with. Now, I will provide the information regarding what the who's playing, what the what the margin of victory will be, and the over-under for each of those remaining games, but there will be no in-depth analysis on that. So, on Friday, September 5th, you have James Madison versus Louisville. The margin of victory is 1 in favor of Louisville. The over-under is 58.5 or 59. You have Western Illinois versus Northwestern. No information is available on the over-under or the margin of victory. You have Northern Illinois versus Maryland, which will be the pros favor Maryland to win that one by 17. The over/under is 47.5 or 48. You have Boise State versus Eastern Washington. No information is available on the over/under or the margin of victory in that one. The rest of the games that will be going on this week will take place on September 6th, 2025. I will not be going back over who I've already covered within the top 25. We're just going over now who is left to play football on Saturday. So we have Northwestern State versus Minnesota. No information is available on the over-under or the margin of victory. You have Virginia versus NC State. No information is available on that game. Actually, I don't have any information available on the line, the line on that one, on who's favored to win and the over/under. So I'll just go over from this point who is playing the rest of the games. You have Central Michigan versus Pittsburgh, UConn versus Syracuse, Liberty versus Jacksonville State. You'll have Western Carolina versus Wake Forest. You have Howard versus Temple, Idaho State versus New Mexico, Miami and Ohio versus Rutgers, Fresno State versus Oregon State, Gardner-Webb versus Georgia Tech, Bowling Green versus Cincinnati, Delaware versus Colorado, Lindenwood versus App State, Texas State versus the UTSA, UAB versus Navy, North Texas will play Western Michigan, St. Francis versus Buffalo, Bryant versus Massachusetts, Middle Tennessee versus Wisconsin, West Virginia versus Ohio, Northern Iowa versus Wyoming, Arkansas State versus Arkansas, Sacramento State versus Nevada, Jackson State versus Southern Miss, Texas Southern versus California, Missouri State versus Marshall, North Carolina Central versus Old Dominion, Campbell versus East Carolina, Florida A&M versus Florida Atlantic. Let's see. Next games you have will be as follows. You have North Carolina versus Charlotte, Army versus Kansas State, Houston versus Rice, North Carolina A&T versus UCF, Western Kentucky versus Toledo, Northern Colorado versus Colorado State, Memphis versus Georgia State, Tulane versus South Alabama, Long Island University versus Eastern Michigan, Ball State versus Auburn, Vanderbilt versus Virginia Tech, Akron versus Nebraska, Georgia Southern versus USC, Boston College versus Michigan State, Southern Illinois versus Purdue, Charleston Southern versus Coastal Carolina, UCLA versus UNLV, McNeese versus Louisiana, Tulsa versus New Mexico State, UT Martin versus UTEP, Weber State versus Arizona, San Diego State versus Washington State, Stanford versus BYU, UC Davis versus Washington, and Sam Houston versus Hawaii. So there you have it. That is your complete rest of your schedule for who will be playing college football on Saturday, with no additional analysis outside of the top 25 and the game of intrigue. I do know that there are other polls that do determine championships regarding college football. We will not be using those when we do these. This college football live stream on the picks that we do each week will be from this point going forward in the rest of the college football season, at least through the end of the regular season and maybe even through the conference championships, will be on each and every Tuesday around. I'm not sure of the time yet on Tuesday, but it will take place on Tuesday each and every week. I'm going to try to see what time is a good time to do it, but we will be doing this college live stream on Tuesdays. Also, there will be other live streams that do come up from time to time, and those will be announced at the time when those are relevant. We will also have live streams with regular sports coverage, and we will be continuing to do regular sports action, sports education, sports reports, breaking news, or anything other things that are sports related. Thank you again for tuning into this broadcast today. Do any of y'all have any questions, comments regarding what we've talked about in this college football live stream today? If not, thank you again for tuning in to this broadcast today on Sports Live Media. If you will, please hit the like button, please hit the notification bell and the share button so you can be made aware of when I'm doing these live streams for college football, when I have sports action videos, when I have sports education videos, again when I broadcast live, or when I have breaking news in the sports world. If you wish to subscribe to the channel, it is greatly appreciated, and I do appreciate each and every one of you. There are two ways to do it. One, you go to www.youtube.com, the slash symbol, the at symbol, SPORTSLOV, or you can go to the YouTube search tab, type in Sports Live Media, that's two words, SPORTSLOV as one word, and then media, MEDIA, as the second word in the search tab. When you do it either of those two ways, you'll know it's me because I have Sports Live Media burned into a basketball as my avatar. I do wish to thank you again for tuning into this broadcast today. I'm also on Twitter X. My handle there is at BobAmin16. That's the at symbol, BOBAMIN 16. Thank you again for tuning in today. Again, we will have these college football live streams each week during college football season, every Tuesday from here on out for the foreseeable future. And if things need to be changed, I will let you know. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope y'all all have a wonderful day.